Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and I'm super excited today. We have Jen Coken back. For those of you who don't know Jen, you should know Jen. So before we get started and I introduce her, I want to make sure you go over to breakthroughauthormagazine.com, grab your free copy of our monthly magazine. Lots of tips and tricks and just fun articles about our authors over there. So I really encourage you to go over. We have added in 2023 some extraordinary new contributors. Tracy Hazard will be starting in February, the owner of Podetize. She can give unbelievable advice on how to get booked, just pretty much everything about podcasts. Her and her husband, Tom, are the owner of the largest post-production podcast company in the world. So they know a lot about this. Also, adding Jackie Jordan, Guestbert TV. For those of you out there who have aspirations to be on TV talking about your book, Jackie has some new courses. We are really excited. These courses are downloadable, and being in the media is harder than you think, especially TV, because the segments aren't that long. You need to be polished and you need to be the expert that they choose to come on. So, and then lastly, Nina Frohreep and Robin Stilt. I'm really excited about these guys because they are video experts. They actually participated in our 10-day author platform build. And even though they're video experts, we highlighted them as email experts because they write the best emails. It's no wonder that their audience stays so engaged. So please go over, and you guys don't know this, but when we run launches, if you are a magazine subscriber and we know what kind of books you like, occasionally we'll send you out a free book. And who doesn't like that? So, okay, getting into it, Jen Coken, recognized by ABC, MSNBC, and TEDx. Jen Coken is a comedian, coach, speaker, and imposter syndrome expert. She believes coaching is a full contact sport, which I would agree with that. She is also the No BS guide for rebellious, purpose-driven CEOs and their teams who are ready to get out of their own damn way and achieve what they are destined for with clarity, focus, and confidence. Fortune 500 CEOs to seven-figure founders trust Jen to shake things up with no apologies, no limits, and all the laughs. So stay tuned for Jen. Welcome, Jen. How are you today?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm doing great. It was, I'm in Annapolis, Maryland, and yesterday, like week has just been gray and really fall. Today the sun's out, so I'm really excited.
Yes, it is out here too. No snow. There's like no snow today, which is, I don't know. Being from California, I've never really made friends with snow here.
See, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I am very good friends with snow, except in Cleveland, it was always like went right to ice because of the lake. So there was always this
Oh,
lake effect, and it was always this cold that would get into your bones kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I spend most of my winter upstairs because I have the whole one side of my downstairs is glass. So it just feels like it's always cold down there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have you here. Before we get started on the power code, talk about your book. When I Die, Please Take My Panties is being made into a movie.
Yes. When I
All
die,
I'm
take my
imagining is
panties.
like thongs running across the screen.
Well, so I have always had a vision to have the book made into a movie because when I wrote the book, it was an opportunity for me to process my grief for my mom passing away from ovarian cancer after being misdiagnosed for a year. And I know of at least 3 women who read the book and were diagnosed stage 1, which is really unheard of for ovarian cancer. And every time I kiss this, kiss my hand and look at the sky and say, thanks, mama, we got another one. So I've always had this desire to have it in a movie format. So I had a bigger platform, but I also honestly didn't want it to be some tearjerker, sad, like misery memoir set on the big screen. And so I found an amazing screenwriter who has the same kind of snarky sense of humor that I do. And so this memoir about my mom dying and our relationship is now a romantic comedy set in a retirement community in Florida that has nude speed walking and
No.
new drum circles, because the kind of one of the backstories is like age authentically. People say age gracefully. I never liked that. My mom never liked that. It's like, be yourself. And my mom was tap dancing and teaching tap till the moment, like the week before she passed away, literally. So that's part of the backstory. And then the whole thing is set against a backdrop of Alice in Wonderland.
Wow. Do we need to drop acid to see this movie?
No. But it's going to be, kind of like Little Miss Sunshine. If you ever saw that movie, it's quirky, but it's very poignant because it's about the relationship of the little girl to herself and accepting herself for who she is and being happy. And it's more of that genre. But then there's also this beautiful love story that's meant to show that Jen recognizes, me being the main character now, which is so weird, recognizes that happiness is not outside of her, and that she doesn't have to go looking elsewhere to be happy. Because in truth, when I was going through my mom's things after she died, I always thought somehow she hadn't lived up to her potential, in air quotes, for those listening, because she was an actor as I was growing up. She was also an educator. She worked for NASA, actually. But when she married my stepdad, she stopped performing. She stopped, doing those kinds of things that I knew she loved. And I always thought she had somehow given something up. And when she and I talked about it at the end, and when I eventually went through all her things, I realized that wasn't the case at all. She was completely happy and content. And I had felt like I was always the one on this treadmill of trying to find happiness, forgetting, as Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, click, 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 there's no place like home. So it's more going to be like a quirky, offbeat, fun, happy movie. But at the end, it is revealed that my mom's dying and there's nothing I can do. And then closing credits will be, kind of one of these. If you're a woman, because it's not even if you're a woman suffering from ovarian cancer, but here's where there's free resources to identify the symptoms and the signs. But we filed the script with the Writers Guild of America, and we've done what's called the tone reel, and we've done the slide deck to take it around to funders. And now we're just looking for a cool 5 million.
Very nice. Remind me when we're done to talk to you about someone. Let's see.
Right.
Okay. So sorry, got right in the middle of that. Isn't it amazing when you clean out your parents' house, like the things you find? I found boxes of pretty much every medal and ribbon that my sister and I had ever won from swimming. And I was like, I threw them away. I was like, what the hell am I going to do with these? And why did they save them? But it was kind of nice to know that they were so proud of us. They saved them. But
Yeah.
it was just a weird experience. So let's talk about
Yes.
power codes. You have a new program out that I think is just so beneficial in helping people really understand and take back their power. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Yeah. I think there's a couple things that are facing workers in general. Number one, it's the continued work from home or hybrid workspace, or am I going into the office? A lot of teams are disconnected. And I also feel like, people have called COVID the great equalizer. I don't believe that at all. But I do think COVID made the whole population of the world realize how uncertain life is. Like we just never know. Like, who would have predicted any of this? None of us. And if we did, we'd be millionaires, because you and I would have invested in N95 masks and gloves, whatever. We would be totally billionaires right now, right? So nobody could have predicted that. But I think people forget life is always uncertain. And when you have a major life event, if you've had a divorce, if you've had someone die, if you've given birth, if you have a wedding, you kind of are reminded of the uncertainty of life. But COVID reminded everybody of it. So now we have uncertainty that's very present for people. And even with life being uncertain before COVID, at least it was a little bit predictable. You could predict a promotion, or you could predict where maybe you could predict where the market was heading, or maybe you could predict the way that people are going to buy things over Christmas, New Year's, travel, that kind of thing. All that went out the window. So now we have uncertainty and unpredictability. Great combination for us humans to feel even keeled all the time. Oh yeah, not. And what I looked at was, well, what do you do in the face of total uncertainty and unpredictability? Well, the only thing you ever have any agency over is yourself and how you can respond to situations. I call that responsibility, your ability to respond in a calm, present manner. Now, mindfulness and meditation is really the mastering of the distance between reactivation and response. But I don't know about you or anyone listening to this. If I'm in the middle of reacting to something, I'm not going to move to positive mantras in that moment. I want to throat punch someone. I'm upset. I'm dealing with all of that comes with the brain generated activity. And so what I'm now training people in is what I call the power code. And it's an acronym to train people. How can I respond in that moment in
Nice.
a present way? How do I want to show up as a leader?
That is such amazing insight because, I know personally when I get uncertain, I get angry, but I have trained myself over time to say, can I control this? Can I not? And really learn to, I can't control it. So let's just let it go and whatever's going to happen. But to get to that point does not happen overnight. It is truly a practice.
And I think too, the other thing that's what can I control? And then the other aspect of it that I have found is what can't I accept right now? So for example, I had a client, Brian, and he owns 4 restaurants, one of which he bought in the middle of the pandemic. It was not predictable. He took over a family-owned restaurant, was the first guy other than the family to buy it. It's been phenomenal. But in the middle of everything, he could not find a source for turkey or buttermilk. Okay.
Wow.
I refer to this as turkey gate. So we're on the phone and he is usually a very happy-go-lucky guy. And he knows I talk about this all the time and he's fine with it. But he was not happy that day. He was very brow furrowed, very quiet. And other people on the call were talking about their wins and what support they needed. And I get to Brian and Mom, got turkey and buttermilk. Can't believe it. I just can't accept it. This is just crazy. I don't understand. I'm usually so resourceful. I cannot find a source for it. And I said, well, first of all, Brian, what's the worst that can happen? And he kind of chuckled. He goes, well, no buttermilk pancakes for after church and no turkey, no home style turkey, mashed potatoes and gravy for people either. And we'll have to shut down on Sundays if I really just was silly about it and took it to the nth degree. He goes, I get that, Jen. I get it. But I just can't accept that I can't be resourceful enough to find turkey or buttermilk. And I stopped him and I said, what did you say? He said, I can't accept it. I won't accept it. I won't accept it. I said, really? I said, can you find right now, 4:00 on a Monday, 4:30, do you right now have a source of turkey or buttermilk? No. Okay. So right now, 4:31 now, can you find it? And I kept going down that line of questioning until finally he said, right, I don't have a source right now. And I said, then that is what's so. Those are the facts, Jack. You can accept it or not accept it, but being unwilling to accept it, you may not like it. I'm not talking about people accepting things and then that means they have to like it or they're okay with it. No, but if it's the facts, and that's the first part of the power code, pursue the facts is the P, and O is own your stories. So he was making up this whole story about how he wasn't resourceful and the thing's going to shut down and oh my God, it's terrible. And I said, well, what are the facts? He can't find a source right now. Okay. Can you accept that? Those are the facts. It's weird. It's like defying gravity. It'd be weird not to accept the facts. I'm 5'10". It would be weird if I didn't accept that and didn't duck when I went into my airplane seat. I would have a noggin full of bruises because I could easily whack my head. So in that moment, when we separated the facts from his stories, he had a moment to be able to pause. Said, okay, I can't accept it. And I said, well, all right, now the W is witnessing. When we're separating fact from fiction, we're present. Like, oh, right, I can't accept that. Okay. And when we're present, we have presence of mind to think logically, because when we can't accept or when we feel like we're out of control or something's out of our control, this is where the amygdala takes over and the reasoning and logic brain goes out the window. When we separate fact from fiction, there is this inverse reaction where the emotion gets taken out of it and the logical brain begins to take over. And we can then have some presence of mind. I say presence of mind, body, soul, and spirit. If you don't like the word spirit, call it Bob, whatever, God, your dog, the universe. I call it God. It's up to you, but call it Bob, a tree, whatever. But then we can hear that still small voice of how we do want to show up as a leader. And that's embracing a new choice. So separate fact from fiction, he got to be the witness of his thoughts as thoughts. That's the W in the power code. Witness your thoughts, witness your body sensations, witness all that. Okay, now you can actually, okay, I'm not in the pit of my stomach. What if we don't have turkey sandwiches? No buttermilk pancakes. Okay. Well, then, thinking I'm not resourceful, all that stuff. Okay, got all that. Who do you want to be when you show up to work tomorrow? Are you going to be all that angst all over your team as they're freaking out because they don't see the resources? He's like, no, he goes, I'm going to be generous and I'm going to be compassionate for myself of just getting that right now. I don't have a source for that. So he created embracing that new choice of being generous and compassionate. And wouldn't you know it, the next day at 10 o'clock, I get a text. 6 turkeys were just dropped off at each of my locations. This happened, like just got sourced for buttermilk, because it sounds woo woo, but at the same time, we're all energy. Everything's energy. If our thinking, that's what blocks us from being responsible, from being accountable, and not accepting is our own blind spots of where we're energetically blocking off opportunities because we can't see them, because we're so narrowly focused on the issue at hand. So using the power code takes those blinders off and allows people to see new ways of showing up and embracing their leadership that they would not have seen before.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's one of those, when I said it's a practice, that was, one of those lessons that really brought that into my awareness, was one day just saying, you know what, I'm not going to play this game. I'm breaking the pattern. Whatever happens, happens. And, probably 20, 30 days later, the situation came back resolved to my initial satisfaction. And it was really powerful for me to say, oh my God, I just learned how to let go. Now, how do I replicate that?
Yeah. And I think that's really important. What you just said, Juliet, is we hold on so tightly to our opinions and our viewpoints as if they are the truth. And that is the way things are. This doesn't work. They're a jerk. When you, and the way to replicate that, go, okay, I'm upset. Like, I know when I lose my sense of humor, all bets are off. You know me, I'm like play and fun. And if I've lost my sense of humor, I'm reactivated by something. And I got to literally give myself a timeout. I got to go put baby in the corner to deal with myself. Otherwise, it is not pretty for the people around me. And, just not pretty.
I was going to say, I think too, with people like that, because the same with me, my sense of humor, but unfortunately I have to put myself in a corner because that snarky sense of humor turns to snarky ugly.
Yes.
Really fast.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so there with you. But you're right about the R in the power code is like reflect and repeat and reflect and repeat, because using the power code, and clients of mine have literally been in a pickle with somebody like, all right, let me use the power code. Let me write out everything I'm upset about. And this is the key thing, write out everything I'm upset about, everything, rah, 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 blah, blah, blah. I'm like, set a timer, handwrite it. I think it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that timer is up, go back through and just circle the facts, or take a highlighter. If you're like me and you really love pretty colors on a page, highlight the facts, the who, what, where, and when. You're going to find there's few. And that one moment of like, nothing I'm upset about is actually happening right now, and all this is just made up. That's the moment where you're a witness to everything. And then you can embrace how you want to show up. Okay, I'm just going to take a step back right now. I'm going to chill. That's how I'm going to show up. I'm going to chill out and allow things to unfold. Whatever, like you said, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm just going to allow it to happen the way it's going to. See, in that moment, you interrupted that brain pattern, as you said. And then you want to practice, not you want to, but I recommend people practice, 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 practice. As far as I can tell, it's what I've been practicing for the last 43 years of my life. And there's more time to practice it because I still get annoyed and reactivated by lots of stuff.
But do you find, though, here's what I found since I started practicing that is I don't get upset as much. I don't worry as much, because it really and truly is, this is out of my control. Why am I spending energy on it? And that other thing is, when you were talking about that gentleman in the restaurant, sometimes when you come up with a plan B is better than the plan A you've been following. So, some really extraordinary things come out when you sit down and start sort of reevaluating and separating those facts from fiction.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is so important, because we need to have a plan A and a plan B. Plan A is what you are thinking about and creating in the best of times when all things are perfect, and they never are. So what's your plan B? Because everything went to hell in a handbasket and somebody got sick in your family, or a kiddo, you need to go deal with them at school, or I don't know, supply chain issues. There's barges stuck at sea with cars that are about to sink. I live in Annapolis, and there was a barge off the coast. I think it was a BMW barge with all these cars that literally was going to sink if
Well,
they
it's
didn't get the stuff off.
it's
Yeah.
BMW though, so if it
Yeah.
sinks, there's no big deal. No big
Yeah.
deal. I shouldn't say that. I own two and I hated BMWs, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think what's important here is to recognize that we do have a choice. And sometimes it feels like we don't because the circumstances are beyond our control. But guess what? Circumstances are always beyond your control. So have some compassion when everything isn't going well and have that plan B. It doesn't mean you're not committed to plan A. It just isn't the right environment. It's not conducive to plan A right now. So have a plan B.
Absolutely. So tell us about this class. When are you starting it? Where can people get on board? Because I think it really is important. And before I have you say that, I just got done reading a book about how anxiety is, it was called Totalitarianism, and our media expert recommended it. And anxiety is actually one of the things that is moving us a little bit more towards fascism, because people are getting locked in those stories and shutting down. That I thought that was very interesting, that anxiety is one of the ingredients in what's going on today with cancel culture and all of these other things that are going on in the world.
Yeah, because we're anxious about what we don't have control over. I was actually, when the pandemic first hit, I was doing a lot of free workshops on how to harness anxiety to achieve your goals. Because what I said was that anxiety is a direct result of something you're committed to. If you're committed to producing, 50,000 widgets by the end of the month, and hopefully the sun isn't completely blocking out my face right now because I realize it came out and is shooting in through my window.
You're fine.
If you're committed to producing 50,000 widgets and the widget maker shuts down, and you have to fulfill orders, that can create anxiety. But there's a different differentiator between real fear and imagined fear. Mostly what the human brain worries about is what we think might happen, not what's actually happening right now. And when we separate fact from fiction, we can clearly see what's happening right now. And then ask ourselves, what am I committed to, so that we can move forward and not be caught up in that anxious thinking. But if people go to my website, jencoken.com, there's a pop-up where you can get Cracking the Power Code. And that's an ebook and an infographic to have next to your desk. And then I will be having a master class on how to use it next quarter. I'm trying to think, I want to say it's like January 10th. I can't remember the date, but we can also post that in the show notes so that and that's a free master class for anybody that wants to attend to start being trained and developed.
That is so awesome. Can people email you if they're interested and want to be notified?
Yes.
It's janetjencoken.com, correct?
You got it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we'll have a live waiting list page shortly. Once we get it together, we'll have a live waiting list page. I mean, it's November, we're talking about January, but it's going to be here sooner than we think. I mean, people have their Christmas decorations up already. They had them the day after Halloween. I'm like, can't you wait till the day after Thanksgiving?
See, if you look downstairs right now, I'm half and half because I'm going to my daughter's for Thanksgiving. So I've got like the dining room is Thanksgiving and the living room, my tree's up. It's just not decorated.
Oh,
so I've got like a half and half thing going right now. I want to get back to something really quick, and I'll have you repeat again at the end where to go. Anxiety can be addicting. I just I wanted to get to that a little bit because of that power, that pattern interrupt. You can really get locked into anxiety. And the reason I'm saying that is when you mentioned COVID, I remember being so anxious like that first week. And typically I'm someone who doesn't eat when I'm anxious, but for some reason I was just gobbling carbs. But I remember the moment I hit rock bottom was when I watched The Tiger King. And I was literally like, oh my gosh, like you are becoming addicted to this anxiety. And that was like the worst, like you've hit rock bottom, girl.
And I really,
Yes.
I got up, I threw the carbs away that morning and went out and started running and hiking again. But you can, I mean, that was just a very minor, but you can actually become addicted as part of that anxiety pattern. Would you say that's true?
I think that's true unless you've been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder or a panic disorder. I think that's totally separate. A disorder is always, or a syndrome is always a medical diagnosis. We're talking about run of the mill anxiety where there's not a medical diagnosis. I think because, the average human has 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Let's say on that for sake of this call and you and me and everybody listening, 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 85% are negative and 95% are repetitive. The brain's job is to keep the thing it's a brain of alive. So it's constantly predicting potential threat. And that used to be physical threat, which we, for the most part, don't have unless you're one of those crazy black diamond, double black diamond skiers, maybe, and maybe are going off those, because you're there in Utah and I'm thinking about all those movies,
Yeah,
the skiing movies.
the hella skiers here where they jump out of helicopter. That would
Yeah.
cause great anxiety for me.
Oh, I would never do that. I'm like on the bunny slope. I'm reaching the lodge. I'm getting cocoa with a little
No,
vodka, but don't tell anyone.
I'm still in the lodge. I just
But I think that's what happens as we get into this negative feedback loop. Now, it's one thing if we are dealing with it ourselves, but then you have this pressurized container of isolation or people isolating with others they aren't normally around. And then everybody's feeding off each other. We're all watching the news and I never watched the Tiger King. I couldn't do it. I could not bring myself to do it.
Well, yeah, you're a bigger woman than I am. I mean, I saw a little kid with a mullet the other day, and I was literally like, "Oh, how could you do that to your child? Did you ever watch the Tiger King?"
Yeah. But I think that's part of what happens is we get into this negative cycle. And it also, we are the sum of the 5 people that we're around the most. And if all those people are negative, that's going to keep feeding that same beast too, and keep those stories alive and keep feeding your anxiety and not ever allow you to break out of it. It's one of the reasons I love my close friends so much because they will be like, Sharon Moonstruck and smack me across the face and scream, snap out of it. Those are the people you should call your friends, not the people you're bitching and moaning with over a glass of wine, But I think it's layers and layers, right? Us to ourselves with the way the brain works. Then we're in conversation with other people about how much things suck. And then you have this pressurized world of everything that's happening. And then you're looking at that. I stopped watching the news about 6 years ago. Because I mean, I'll do it in bits and bites, but I'm choosing rather than I used to be a junkie of watching the news. I just don't do it anymore because I couldn't stomach it and it was making me anxious.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I was telling someone the other day I brought up that, we were heading into, or we are actually in a recession. And he said, well, I don't want to position it with my clients like that because it's so negative. And I told him, I said, when I was a real estate broker, during the last recession, our coaches actually told us to turn the news off because we would watch it and then we would believe that we weren't going to get any clients. And it sort of fed into this loop. And even when you're out pitching, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not going to get this. And even if I got it, I can't sell it. And, you just get into that really negative. So good for you. It's all propaganda anyway. So
it is. It totally is. It really is. Yeah.
It is. So again, we can find you at jencoken.com if we want to email you when this comes out, or go over to her website, jencoken.com. Coken is Coken. And you guys can get on the interest list over there too. But go over and get that download too.
Yeah. Yeah. They go over and get the download. If they want to, unsubscribe to my newsletter, they can. I send out about 1 email a week. So when you get the Power Code ebook, you're automatically added to my newsletter list, which comes out about once a week. And it's really tips, tools, and strategies for how to be a better leader, how to manage your team, that kind of thing. So if you want that kind of content, keep it or download the thing and then unsubscribe. Fine with me. I don't care. I'm not going to take it personally.
There you go. We love engaged lists. So
yes.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Well, I so appreciate that you had me on and that we had a conversation about it. How great was this? Unexpected.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's very cool. I love having you on about once a year. You're one of my, every year I go to. In fact, I need to get Meryl Chandler back on with what's going on in the finance world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.